Okay, good morning, dear friends. Torah learning this morning at the Daniel S. Loeb Torah Center. For those people who are here and those people online, I got a big reaction from my video yesterday and a lot of messages and emails on our discussion of the true motivation of the Iranian regime, which is not what most people think. If you want to see more about that, you should check out that video. I want to just share a quick story with you, which I heard, actually not even a story, it's a fact. I was at two weddings last night, and at one of them, the Gabbai, the Shamash of my Bet Knesset was at this wedding I was at last night, and he said, I watched your videos, I want to tell you a quick story that happened to me this morning. I said, okay. We rabbis, we need material. I said, what's up? He says to me, he davens nets every single morning. He davens at daybreak, which of course is the best time to pray, at a synagogue every single morning. And so you get to know the people there, because it's like a thing. Nets, people pray nets, the same net, same place, you know what I'm saying, every single day. And he sees a very elderly gentleman sitting in the Bet Knesset, so he's a very friendly guy. He walks over to give him shalom. And he says, welcome, Bruchim Habayim, to our minyan, our Netz minyan. Who are you? And he says, my name is Rabbi Zaks. Rabbi Zaks. He says, oh, are you from the Zaks family? There's a very famous family which actually are in New York and in Eretz Yisrael, who are descendants of the Chafetz Chaim. So he says, yeah, I am from that family. Actually, my grandfather was the Chafetz Chaim. Isn't that incredible? He says, what are you doing here? He says, I flew to America for something, and the war broke out, and I got stuck here. So he says, can I ask you a question? When I was a kid in yeshiva, there was a story that got passed around, and he stopped him and said, it's true. It's true. What's the story? The story is that the Chafetz Chaim had children, and he had a daughter who married a guy called Zaks, obviously, which led to this man's, birth. And the story is that the Chafetz Chaim said to his daughter and son-in-law that they would not see Mashiach. They would not have the zchut of seeing Mashiach. However, he said, your grandchildren will see Mashiach and they're going to see the Geula. And Rabbi Zak said to my friend that me and my brother, I think, or some cousin, are the last grandchildren of the Chafetz Chaim, and this guy was in his late 80s. Something like that. He told me the age, I can't remember. Late 80s, whatever it was. So he said, we have a tradition in our family that we as the grandchildren have the zchut of seeing the final Geula, the final redemption. We're going to see Mashiach and the return of the Jewish people to Eretz Yisrael. One other thing about the Chafetz Chaim, which I must tell you, because someone else wrote to me about this, trying to verify this, and I did find this in a sefer. What I'm about to do is a little scary, but I'll tell you anyway. And it came to my mind because of an image we just saw a couple of days ago, which all of us saw. There is a tradition about the final war of Gog and Magog and how long it's going to last. And one opinion is going to last for months. Some say 9 months. That's one opinion. And that seems to coincide with a lot of the mainstream writings. There's a tradition of the Vilna Gaon that it's going to last a few hours. I found in a sefer, in a book, which I actually copied and put into my book that I wrote on this topic, that the Chafetz Chaim had a tradition, and this was heard verbatim from the Chafetz Chaim, so take it or leave it. But he said the final war of Gog and Magog will last 20 to 30 minutes. Something like that. Now, the idea of a war lasting for 20 minutes, going back 80, 90 years, whatever it is just ridiculous. I mean, no one fought wars. Wars took, months, years, 100 years, like the 100 Years' War. There is a pasuk that we say, which is actually recited in the Haggadah, that comes from the prophet, I think Yoel, but I'll double check. And he says that the final war of Gog and Magog is going to involve Esh, fire, and Timrot Ashan. Timrot Ashan. What is Timrot Ashan? So Ashan is smoke. Timrot comes from the word tamar. What's a tamar? Dates, or a palm tree, which is where dates come from. So the prophet tells us, and these are the words that we say in the Haggadah, that the final war of Gog and Magog may involve a date palm looking smoke, which we today would call a mushroom cloud. Now, I hope not, because remember, we have a principle: every negative prophecy does not need to happen. If we do teshuvah, tefillah, tzedakah, ma'avir and edra gezerah, we can get rid of any bad gezerah enactment, decree from Hashem. Every positive prophecy needs to happen. So this week could be able to get rid of this. But when I saw us hitting that Fordo plant, and you saw that big mushroom cloud, or that Timrot Ashan come out, hopefully it will be Yotzeh, the words of the prophet, when we saw that big mushroom cloud, because otherwise, Chas v'chalila lo aleinu, I don't want to know. But it could be a very short and sharp end to the Gog and Magog conflict. One other piece I must mention when it comes to this, which is another question which someone asked me since yesterday morning. I've been busy, and that is, what's the difference between Gog and Magog and Amalek? Amalek and Gog and Magog, do the two coincide? Do they overlap? What exactly is the difference, or are they two of the same thing? So actually they're two very different things, but they may overlap. And let me explain how. And I could talk for an hour just on Amalek, who they are, because we have a long and difficult history with Amalek. Amalek are the nation that have been pursuing us since we left Egypt. From the highest point, they've been a physical challenge, they've been a spiritual challenge, they have been trying to destroy us in every way, shape, and form for thousands of years. We said the word Amalek has the gematria, the numerical value of 240, which is the same as Safek, doubt. They are the people who sow seeds of doubt. They break our emunah, our faith in Hashem, at every given moment. So Amalek are a physical reality, but they are also a spiritual battle that we are constantly fighting. It never ends, and that's been with us forever. One of the jobs of Mashiach, actually to prove that he is Mashiach, is to finally rid the world of Amalek as a nation and Amalek as an ideology. Okay, so what's Gog and Magog? Gog and Magog have not been there for thousands of years. Gog and Magog are the final people who are going to come at the end of days, which we're seeing now, which we already discussed yesterday. See yesterday's video, which is discussing Paras, Persia, who are the head of the snake, who come to physically attack us. There is no ideological battle. Actually, maybe ideologically, they actually coincide with us, which sounds weird. But Yishmael, the Arabs, have a lot of ideas that are not contradictory to Jewish belief compared to other religions and ideologies. However, Amalek are. However, Gog and Magog are going to stand. And the big difference is this. Listen to this unbelievable idea. Gog and Magog is going to be God's battle. If you look at the words in Ezekiel, it says that God's going to draw them into the battle and God is going to defeat them. That's God's battle. We need to have faith that Hashem is going to completely wipe them out. Amalek, that's us. That's our battle. We've had to fight them for thousands of years. So we are in partnership with God, ridding the world of Amalek, and Hashem says, if you have faith in me, says Hashem, I am going to get rid of Gog and Magog. I'll pull them in, literally, with hooks in their cheeks, says the prophet. That's the metaphor that's used to drag them in, but I am going to drag them out as well. And which is better? So the Hashem version is better, because that creates a better Kiddush Hashem, sanctification of God's name. Just like the Pesach story. Who defeated Pharaoh when we left Mitzrayim? God did. We didn't do anything. We just came along for the ride, and Hashem took care of it all. That was a tremendous Kiddush Hashem. Now, the Purim story was getting rid of Amalek. That we had to do. Mordechai and Esther had to figure out how we're going to do it, how we're going to reverse the decree. That was us doing it. That also creates a Kiddush Hashem, but that's a lower Kiddush Hashem. We don't want that version. We don't get our hands dirty. We want to deal with the higher level of Kiddush Hashem, of sanctification of God's name, by having God take care of it for us and wipe out Gog and Magog for us. That's the major difference between Gog and Magog and Amalek. Having said that, Amalek, unlike Gog and Magog, are not a unified nation. Gog and Magog is a unified nation or a regime, as we're now seeing in modern-day Iran, who are gathering other people to back them. That's Gog and Magog. Okay, that's one regime. Amalek are now spread out through the entire world. They're not a unified reality. It's been too long. They're mubulbal. They're all spread out. And therefore, when it comes to Amalek, they are going to be spread and dotted around. That means there is a Amalek right now in Russia. There is a Amalek right now in China. There is a Amalek right now in America, in New York. Online, you see these people who are advocating very openly and very brazenly the destruction of the entire Jewish people. Right? For no good whatsoever. They just want to kill us. That is Zerah, my Rosh Hashiva used to say. That is Zerah Amalek. That is the seed of Amalek that's been planted in other locations. Will those people align themselves with Gog and Magog? Absolutely. So now we have a Venn diagram that's starting to overlap. There are within Gog and Magog, which is one regime, one nation, Amalekites who are like, hello, we'll join together with Gog and Magog in order to get our agenda of wiping out God and the Jewish people from the world. Intersectionality. Precisely. With that in mind, my dear friends, I want to look at the parasha this week because I found something fascinating, an idea about the parasha. This parasha of Korach is all about rebellion. That's how it's sold to us. As children, standing up to leadership in order to further our own personal agenda. And in this particular story of Korach, it seems pretty simple. Mosher Rabenu is the king, he's the melech, he's the Mashiach of his day. Aaron is appointed to be the Kohen Gadol. Moshe and Aaron, who are brothers, have a cousin. His name is Korach. And Korach, after the sin of the spies, starts to get a little bit antsy and starts to lead a rebellion, and he grabs 250 plus people to join his insurrection in order to claim power for himself. So it seems. So what does he do? He gathers them together and says, Vayikach Korach. He takes himself aside, says Rashi. How does he do it? So Rashi tells us very famously the word kach is to take people with words. He's an excellent orator. Unlike Mosher Rabenu, who has a lisp and is not a great speaker, says the Rambam, because had God made him to a great speaker, we would have said the only reason he became leader is because he talked his way into it, right? He did not have a very good oratory skill, says the Rambam, but Korach did. Korach was able to use and persuade people, hundreds of people, not just like lowlives, right? Nisim, great people, to join his cause. And what was he saying? What was his claim? So on the surface, he was saying, listen, Aaron HaKohen takes the kahuna. There's nepotism. Why can't I get it? I need to do it. So on the surface, it looks like Korach is basically saying, you guys are in charge. You need to appoint me because I deserve power as well. I want to be Kohen Gadol. I'm not happy being Levi. What was really going on? Listen to this amazing idea, because you're going to see it, well, I saw it, in the current political situation here in New York. But I think you're going to find it in most political battles that are happening around the world. This Korach disease is going to replay itself. It goes like this. Korach is saying, you Moshe, you Aaron, you have a lot of power. Ravachim, you have too much power. Too much. You need to spread it out. And he did a very interesting thing. Listen to this fascinating idea. He had a group of his followers put on garments made entirely of techelet. Techelet is the blue dye that comes from the murex snail, the chilazon, that we put onto one strand of the tzitzit. So he made them put on garments fully made of this blue dye, this royal blue dye. And he walks over to Mosher Rabenu and he says, tell me, all of my followers over here are wearing garments made fully of techelet. Do they need to have one tzitzit of techelet as well? And Mosher Rabenu was like, yeah, absolutely. They still do. He's like, that's ridiculous. If they have a garment that's fully techelet, why would they need one strand? Now, when I was a kid and I heard this very famous Gemara, an idea that Rashi brings down, I thought he's basically saying the whole thing of Judaism is ridiculous. That's not what Korach was saying. Korach was not a dummy. What was Korach saying with this particular example? He's like, we the Jewish people, we are all techelet. We're all great. You are like one strand of techelet. Who are you to stand up and say that you have more authority or power than all the people? We're all great. We're all amazing. He actually came with another question. Most people are not aware of this one. He said, if there is a room full of Sifrei Torah, many, many Sifrei Torah inside a room, does that room need a mezuzah? Mosher Rabenu said, yeah. Even if a room is full of Sifrei Torah, it's got 50 Torahs in a room, he's like, that's ridiculous. Once again, he's saying we, all the people in the congregation, are like a Torah. You are the mezuzah. We don't need you. It makes no sense because we're all holy. Basically, Korach was advocating, as I see it, but I've heard this from various Rabbanim, a form of socialism. He was saying, elect me. People, come follow me. I'm going to take power, just like any communist leader. I'll take power, not because I want it, which he did, by the way. It was on an alila. It was on an excuse. He did want power, like any communist leader. What do they always say? Whenever they start a revolution, whenever they take over Cuba or a country in the Middle East, they all say, no, the people are all great. Elect me, and I'll be the one to distribute the power to all of you. What always happens? They take power through a coup. They become powerful. They breathe in the power. They become intoxicated with the power. And although they promised while they were going around to be like, oh, I'm going to give it all back to you, they don't. They keep it for themselves. How do we respond to such people who come forward with these ideas, saying, it's not about me, I'm here for you, I want to give you back the power. I want to give it to you. Is that a Jewish concept? And the answer is, it's not. Because we know there are definitive leadership roles in the Jewish people. We have a priest, we have a melech, we have kohanim, we have melachim, kings, we have prophets, we have judges, we have positions of power. That doesn't mean they're not held culpable for their mistakes. Absolutely they are. But there are still positions of power. So how are we as the masses, the Torah people, the Tchelet people, below them, meant to see these Gedolim? We have Talmidei Chachamim. We're meant to look up to them, and they're meant to hold themselves up and above everybody else. That's not a problem. That is not contradictory. It's okay to say they have more power, they've been vested with it, they've created it. If they're a Navi, they've grown in that power. A Navi is not elected. A Navi, a prophet, grows in his Nevuah in order to attain the power. So it's not only through appointment, it could be self-earned power that this person has. Korach was using this as an excuse. He's like, no, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's all about you. I want you to have the power. You're going to have to elect me. You're going to have to choose me and depose and take a coup, an insurrection against the people who are in charge. It's not about me. Mosher Rabenu responds to all the Jewish people by saying, don't believe it, it's all about him. How did he do that? How do we respond to such people? What was the genius of Mosher Rabenu, because it was successful? How did he respond? What was his immediate response when it came to dealing with them? The Torah tells us. It tells us in the Pasuk, in Pasuk Daled of the parasha. The first thing that Mosher Rabenu does to push off the Korach rebellion, it says, Vayishma Moshe. Moshe, when it says Shema, that means Moshe didn't just hear, he understood. Moshe Rabenu got it. He knew what Korach's problem was. He knew it wasn't money, by the way. Many people want power because they want money. Right? Like the Mexican presidents, right? They take power, they have a limited amount of time to usurp as much money, build as many palaces as they can before they get deposed, right, and move on, right? There's a short window, right, the average dictator gets to take over and grab. They realize they're not going to be in power forever, right? Because if they took power, someone else can take it from them. So they do as much pillaging as they can in a short amount of time. That's not Korach. How do we know that? Because Korach was loaded. He was a multi-millionaire. Right? The Gemara goes out of his way to tell us that he has myriads of donkeys. Each one had a saddle, and each saddle had tons of keys to a safe house. The guy was loaded. He became very, very rich after leaving Mitzrayim. Right? How he did that, he got a lot of stuff. So it wasn't money. That wasn't his motivation. It wasn't land, because as a Levi, he's not to get land in Israel either. So what's left? Power. He wanted power. That's what he wanted. Not for the people, but for himself. And his ego got ahead of him. So Mosher Rabenu understood this, and it says, Vayipol al panav. He falls on his face. Now, when I'm a kid, I just thought he fell over. What's he doing? Falling on his face. So none of the Rishonim try to understand what this means. What? So one opinion is, he prayed to Hashem. He said, God, do me a favor. We had to deal with the Chet Egel. We had to deal with the spies. This is the fourth one. You know what I'm saying? It's, 3 strikes and you're out. This is 4 strikes. Right? We're done. We are literally done for with this rebellion. If they join him, forget about it. Right? All the prayers I've been doing up to now to get the Jewish people out of a deep hole, if everyone buys into his plan and plot, we're all in big trouble. So that's one opinion. Vayipol al panav, like we do. He did teshuvah, right? Thinking maybe it was something in him, maybe the people, and so he prayed. But what also does the idea of falling on your face, which is connected, by the way, to the first idea, represent? The idea of anivut, humility. Humility. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, that's the difference between you. Yes, I am powerful. I'm Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm the giver of the greatest law in world history. You're right. I am powerful. And I have done a tremendous amount. But it was never about me. I am going to show you. You have an ego problem. You have a ga'ava problem. That's what led you to this active rebellion. I am an anav. And he was. And actually Hashem, the Torah, describes Moshe Rabbeinu in one way. And one way only. What is the only description of Moshe Rabbeinu's personality that we get? Is he called the smartest? No. Is he called the wisest? No. Is he called the strongest? No. Is he called the best orator? We already said no. Right? He had a speech impediment. But he's called Anav, Ishmod, Mikol Adam, more than anybody else. One of my Rabbanim used to say, when the Torah says more than anybody else, it just doesn't mean at the time. It means past, present, and future. There is no one more humble than Moshe Rabbeinu that would ever step foot on the earth. That's contradictory. Right? Because he's the greatest prophet that ever. If you ask Moshe Rabbeinu, who's the greatest prophet that ever lived? He would have to say and write down, which he did in the Torah. So he wrote it down himself, I am the humblest person. Isn't that contradictory? And the answer is no. No. Because he said that my position of power came to me from Hashem. Which is why the final decision to get rid of Korach couldn't come from him. It had to come from Hashem. So Hashem said, step aside, I'm going to have to deal with him. Because if it comes from you, Moshe Rabbeinu, if you're able to crack down on this rebellion, everyone's going to be like, yeah, of course you are. Right? You are the man of power. You're in charge. There's a rebellion. And who fights? The present leader is going to take him over. Hashem says, I understand the problem. I'm going to have to fight this battle for you. I'm going to have to take care of it for you. I want to just tie this in. This is my connection, so the next part you can take or leave. We already said the difference between Amalek and Gog and Magog is that Amalek we fight, and Gog and Magog, says the prophet, Hashem fights for us. Hashem fights for us. I think that this is going to be part of the humility of Mashiach, that Hashem's going to be like, in order to get rid of this final battle, in order to make the tremendous Kiddush Hashem, like we had with Yetziat Mitzrayim, with leaving Egypt, I'm going to take care of it for you so that no one in the entire world has any doubt that this is from me. If Mashiach or any army fights off this great Gog and Magog army that are coming right now, like real time, in order to get us, yeah, it was just us. There are plenty of battles around the world, Ukraine, Russia, whoever has better arms, better technicians, better tactics, they win. Not so. That can't be the way Gog and Magog was defeated. It must come through a Kiddush Hashem, by Hashem, says the prophet, doing it actively and directly himself. That is where we are. And that is why the key to our success in this final battle before Mashiach comes, which we mentioned was the Ramchal yesterday. We quoted the Ramchal, who said that the final battle of Gog and Magog is represented in the pasuk that the current Israeli army uses. Yakum kelavi, I'm going to rise like a lion. That, says the Ramchal, is a lashon, is a pasuk describing Gog and Magog. There's no way they could have known that. I don't believe they did. But that pasuk that they used is perfect because it describes this final, and that is a battle we want Hashem to fight for us. What does that mean? We do have emunah. We have faith in Hashem, whatever that means for you, whether it's Torah, prayer, chesed, whatever it means to you. But this is the generation that needs emunah. That is what we're lacking. Our grandparents had it. Our great-grandparents definitely had it. That is what we need. The emunah that we have towards the Kadosh Baruch Hu will allow Hashem to finish off the job for us. It should happen very, very soon, and it will. Have a great day.